Hello and welcome to Today in Privacy and Cybersecurity. This week we're looking at three big stories. First of all, how Facebook now needs to end all the data sharing of private information between the EU and the US. Also, how the DarkSide ransomware gang that was behind the Colonial Pipeline incident has announced that it's going to quit. And finally, how we need to view zero trust as something that applies universally and how it pays to be paranoid. For some time now, campaigners have been seeking to challenge the way that Facebook shares private information between the EU and the US. Led by Max Schrems, there have been challenges in the European High Court. Firstly, that overturned the treaty for data sharing that was called Safe Harbor, and more recently, in July of 2020, the subsequent treaty called Privacy Shield. Facebook has been dragging its heels and seeking to delay for as long as possible, and the Irish DPC, the responsible authority for regulating Facebook in Europe, has been sort of criticised for dragging its heels in terms of implementing the ruling from last year. The final appeal that Facebook brought has now been dismissed, and therefore we can expect sometime in the very near future for the ruling to be applied, and therefore Facebook is going to need to stop sharing all personal data between the EU and the US. This ruling has massive ramifications because the same ruling that applies here to Facebook could just as easily be applied to any large big tech firms in the US. It stems from the fact that Facebook has been inadequately protecting the users' data from European citizens from surveillance by organisations such as the NSA. This is the reason why the ruling went against Facebook, and unless this sort of mass surveillance stops, which it doesn't appear that it's going to stop anytime soon, Facebook is going to need to abide by this ruling and stop sharing its data with the US if it is going to comply with GDPR. The same surveillance also applies with all other large technology companies in the US, be they social media firms, telcos, or large cloud providers. The ramifications here extend not only to their data centers in the US, but also any European data centers that are under their control. And therefore, if the likes of AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud are talking about transferring all the data that they hold on European citizens and keeping it within their European data centers, this is simply a tokenistic exercise on their part. It doesn't really put this data beyond the reach of the NSA. We're going to be reporting on this as things unfold. In the next story, we're looking at the DarkSide ransomware gang that has been responsible for the Colonial Pipeline attack in the US. This has massive implications for US consumers, with widespread panic buying of fuel. Thankfully, the services for Colonial Pipeline have more recently been restored, but the DarkSide ransomware gang are facing somewhat more turmoil. They have found that their servers have been seized, and so has their entire stash of Bitcoin. As a result, the gang has announced that it's going to be quitting. We somewhat suspect that the members of the gang aren't going to be going for long, and that in the not too distant future we're going to see them reappearing under different names or different guise. So we'll be watching this space. And finally, we're looking more widely at some reporting on the fact that major organisations in the UK, like HMRC, DWP and the Post Office, have been struggling with complexity and a single source of fact. This has had massive ramifications, as we've reported, and certainly there were a large number of postmasters that were jailed on the result of faulty evidence provided by the Post Office from its Horizon system. But this goes far more widely, and in an article we published today around Zero Trust, we're arguing that it pays to be paranoid, and the fact that all systems need to be treated in the same way under a generic Zero Trust umbrella. Good luck everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.